Shalom. This week we read the Torah portion of Shemot as we begin the second of the 5 books of Moshe, the book of Exodus, called in Hebrew Sefer Shemot, meaning the book of names. Ostensibly, certainly safe to say that this name of the book is based on the first words of the first verse of our Parsha. And these are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt with Jacob. Each man and his household came. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda, Issachar, Zvulun, and Binyamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher. But I actually think there's also a much deeper reason for this name, and we'll talk about that later. We read now about the beginning of the exile of the children of Israel in Egypt. How the tables have turned. So strange when you really think about it. Yosef HaTzadik, the righteous Joseph, saved the nation of Egypt from death and absolute extinction. About this, there's no question. And he did this not on account of his Jewish genius and his business acumen, but as a direct result of his purity and godliness. He alone was able to ensure the survival of myriads of people through his innovative food storage and distribution program. That was a great time to be Jewish in Egypt. There was no anti-Semitism. The Jewish kids got invited to all the Egyptian kids' birthday parties. Everyone tipped their hats to the Jews as they walked down the street. Surely Yosef had to have been named Man of the Year with his picture on the cover of Time magazine and postage stamps. Or, in today's terms, he was bigger than Gal Gadot. Her Facebook page has 10,012,228 followers. But Yosef's name came up #1 in Google searches and Facebook followers, what we used to call a household word. But that was as of last week's portion, end of the book of Bereshit. Now, as we begin the book of Exodus, talk about a climate change, talk about a lack of gratitude. How do you forget the one to whom you owe your very life and the lives of your children? Forget about forgetting him. How do you actually dehumanize and demonize them so that they're turned into non-humans? How do you go and enslave his children and embark upon a federalized program to annihilate them? Did I miss something here? But those tables didn't turn overnight. Ultimately, as our sages teach, by the time the Egyptian machinery was in full swing, the horrors of the Egyptian exile experience, systematic state-sponsored murder, would compare right up there with the Holocaust. Jewish babies in Egypt, we are taught, were slaughtered by the tens of thousands and used as mortar in between the bricks of the storage cities the Israelites were forced to build for Pharaoh. But at first, the changes in the political climate that found expression in society, at first they were subtle. So open up your heart. The Midrash recalls that after Yosef and the Shvatim, the brothers, tribes of Israel, after they all passed away, the people of Israel found themselves increasingly entrenched in Egypt and in Egyptian society. They began to despair of ever getting home again. They heaved a collective sigh of despair and gave up hope of ever leaving Egypt. As soon as that happened, when that lethargy took over, that's when the Egyptians began to enslave them. As it is written, verse 1, these are the names of the children of Israel who are coming to Egypt. Actually, yes, in Hebrew, haba'im. It's written in the present tense. It doesn't say who came to Egypt. They were not coming today. On the day which we're reading, they'd been in Egypt for many years. But you see, when the Egyptians began to enslave them, it was as if they have never been in Egypt before, because their illustrious past had been forgotten, wiped out. That's what happens in Galut, in exile. Now for some chronological perspective here. Yosef lived the shortest life of all the brothers. He lived 110 years. And Levi, he lived the longest. He lived 137 years. Now all the while that even one of the brothers was still alive, the Jews were still free. The servitude and bondage began as soon as Levi died. And the slavery lasted for 117 years. Those were the years of bondage. The last 86 years of the exile, the years since Miriam was born, see, she was 86 at the time of the Exodus, they were the harshest years. And in fact, Miriam was named as a testimony to this because her name is based on the word mar, which means bitterness. So the Midrash teaches us that as soon as Levi died, there was a hopelessness. A general attitude of the Israelites was like, so We're here in Egypt, it looks as if we're here to stay. And as soon as they adopted that attitude, or rather as soon as they allowed themselves to sink into that attitude, the Egyptians' attitude towards them changed. And their love for them, their appreciation for everything Yosef had once done, all that changed to hatred. Exactly as the verse states in Psalms 105, in verse 25, he turned their hearts to hate his nation, to plot against his servants. By the way, I heartily suggest that you study Psalm 105 in detail with commentaries, because it contains many secrets that shed light on the whole Egyptian experience from exile to redemption. So verse 8 of our Torah portion states, "A new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph," did not know about Joseph. But you still have to ask yourself, how could Pharaoh have forgotten Joseph and all that he owed him? Everybody knows that our sages teach that some say he was actually a new king, and others maintain he was the same king, but he just pretended as if he didn't know Joseph. Actually, according to our sages' teachings, there's a third angle. It was the same king, and he didn't forget, and originally he didn't want to forget. It was actually his advisors, his cabinet. They were the anti-Semites. Kind of reminds me of the U.S. State Department. So these advisors, they had the idea that the Jews were too successful and too numerous, too influential, and they must be dealt with. But like Pharaoh said, "Are you crazy? Don't you know what Yosef the Jew saved us?" So the advisors made a coup. They removed him for 3 months from office. And then when he was reinstated 3 months later, that was like a new king arose who did not know Joseph, because then he was ready to sing their tune. I guess you've noticed by now that so many aspects of this story, they have a contemporary ring for today's exiled Jews. From the time that it was a great time to be Jewish, to the alarming rise of hate crimes and attacks, and the lethargic, comatose attitude of some who shrug their shoulders and say, "This is where we'll stay because it can't happen here." The governments that are disdainful of the Jews within their countries, while turning a blind eye to terrorists and even accepting them as refugees, while they slowly chip away at the edifices of their host nations and transform them into Islamic states. Another chillingly contemporary ring to all of this, when we speak of the Egyptian ingratitude and the attributes of the wicked, turning against Israel, I'm sorry, but it means turning against God. There's no other intention, and there's no other way to spin it. I'll prove it to you. First, the Pharaoh denied Yosef, and ultimately, he denied God. See, because when Yosef first interpreted his dream, he said back in Genesis 41, what God is doing, he has told to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh had no trouble accepting that. But by the end of our Parsha, in Exodus chapter 5, this Pharaoh who didn't know Joseph, he said, "I don't know who God is." So, sorry, but open up your eyes. It's the same thing today. Jerusalem's not the capital of the Jewish people. Jerusalem has no Jewish history. To deny the historicity of the Jewish people, whose continued survival in this world can only be attributed to God, is to deny the existence of God. But I digress. So, the advisors and Pharaoh came up with a plan, the solution. Let's destroy them slowly and methodically, and they won't realize what's happening till it's too late. So the main goal was to break them physically and spiritually, and also, no less importantly, to stop them from reproducing. First, Pharaoh himself gathered together all of Israel and said, "Loyal Jewish brothers, please do me a favor and help me with this work. I need some bricks for the national good." And he himself, this is actually what the Midrash teaches us, he himself donned work clothes and took up the tools in his hands, like all their brothers, and he went to do the work. So when they saw this, that the great king was so humble that he was actually rolling up his sleeves himself to participate with his people, they said, "Wow, we can't stand idly by and watch the king himself make bricks and not join him." So all of Israel, they were such good citizens. They were the first ones. They were the only ones that he was interested in. They joined in and they worked with zeal, with all their might. Very soon afterwards, Pharaoh appointed taskmasters over them and said, "Okay, here's how it goes." Used to go like that. Here's the story now. See this amount of bricks that you've made? That's what I want you to make for me every day now, yourselves. We're learning here in the first verses of the Parsha 3 distinct decrees that were made. The first decree was the servitude and hardship. The verse tells us, and they embittered their lives with hard labor, with clay and with bricks and with all kinds of labor in the fields. All their work that they worked with them was backbreaking labor. So what is meant by hard labor? The Egyptians forced the Israelites to produce their quota with clay and bricks. And what is meant by all kinds of labor in the fields? They did not allow them to sleep in their homes, but forced them to sleep in the place of their labors, in the fields, ostensibly to ensure their production, but actually to prevent them from returning to their wives at night so that no Jewish children would be born. Actually, the righteous Jewish women found a workaround for this. They went out to their husbands in the fields, but that's another story. And what is meant by the last phrase in this verse? All their work that they worked with them with backbreaking labor? After a hard day of making bricks, the Egyptian citizenry, just the average Egyptian, they would join in tormenting the Jews, making their Jewish neighbors do odd jobs for them, cleaning the streets, taking out the garbage. And interestingly, the Midrash teaches us that one of the forms of torments was that the Egyptians would give men women's jobs to do and women men's jobs. That was considered to be a debilitating form of psychological warfare. Wow. Perhaps this is a prelude to one of the most horrible manifestations of today's exile: gender, identity, doubt, and confusion. Another great and contemporary aspect of the war against children. It's hard to have children, you see, if you don't know if you're a boy or a girl. The second decree was directed at the righteous midwives. They were instructed to kill the male babies. See, at this stage of the game, the genocidal plans were still kept secret. Pharaoh still didn't want to let his plans be known by everyone. He wasn't ready to make a public declaration. He figured that his anti-Semitism would succeed better if it was quiet. So the chilling Midrash says that he told the midwives, it's no big deal. These babies are not really living people yet. The moment that they're born, when the male child is born, just put your finger over his mouth and he'll stop breathing. But these women feared God, and so that didn't work. So finally he had to make the third decree, a public declaration calling for all his nation to participate in killing the Jewish males. To accomplish this, Pharaoh needed the cooperation of every Egyptian man, woman, and child. For example, he used little Egyptian children as spies who informed on their Jewish neighbors when the pregnant women were expecting. He placed an Egyptian in a home between every 2 Jewish homes to monitor who was pregnant and when she was expecting. He had all sorts of ways of utilizing his entire populace to facilitate the genocidal plans. So it bothered the Egyptians that the Jews were so numerous. Verse 7 reads, the children of Israel were fruitful and swarmed and increased and became very, very strong, and the land became filled with them. So what does this mean? The sages actually teach that every Jewish woman gave birth to 6 children at once. Is this literal or figurative? I don't know. But the point of the teaching, like the verse itself, is that the children of Israel in Egypt were very, very prolific. High reproduction rate. Why? Why were they so prolific? So really open up your heart in the deepest way and I'll tell you a deeper, maybe you'd call it a mystical explanation. Maybe not. You know, everyone born in that generation, maybe they complained at the hard times that they were born into and they said, why us? Why is our generation the one that has to go through all this and not those born in some other time? And of course, every generation that experiences great travail and trials could express the same feeling. The truth, my friends, is that we were there too. This idea of the 6 children at once, Hashem gave them a high birth rate. They gave birth in an unusual way so that everyone would be born. Meaning the teaching is that every Jewish soul that was ever destined to be born would come into the world for however brief a period at that time, so that they tasted the servitude, so that a little of the servitude would be experienced by every single soul. So all the future souls were born in that generation and died in it as well. We, already experienced servitude, exile. Do you have any idea what we're saying here? This is a huge, a massive idea. The Egyptian galut, exile, is the roots, the template, the source of all exiles. the source of all exploitation and slavery, and the root of all the travail and suffering that everyone has to somehow go through in this world. And everyone does have to go through some things. But on a deeper level, you know what I think this also means? We've already experienced all the suffering. It's not new to us. So you know how our father Abraham was thrown into Nimrod's fiery furnace, but he came out unscathed? True, many Jews have not emerged alive from the fire, but the entire nation as a whole is still here because Abraham bequeathed an antibody to his children. So too, having been born in that generation means that the nation has antibodies to exile already. This understanding that we were already there on whatever level you're comfortable with, it's the true meaning of so many verses. It's the true meaning of the statement in the Haggadah of Passover that not only our fathers did God redeem from Egypt, but we as well. And the statement, every person is obligated to see himself as if he personally went out from Egypt. This is also the true meaning of the verse in Parashat Nitzavim, Deuteronomy 20, when regarding the covenant with Hashem, Moshe declares, not with you alone do I seal this covenant, but with whoever is here, standing with us today before Hashem our God, and with whoever is not here with us today. Because all the souls were at Sinai in the same way that all the souls were present in Egypt. And this is the big secret, open your heart in the deepest way, big secret of Exodus chapter 20 and verse 2 that stares us in the face. It says, I am Hashem your God who has taken you out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage. The Hebrew, Asher Hotziticha, who has taken you out, is in the singular because it addresses each and every one of us. And this brings us all the way back to what I alluded to in the beginning, maybe a deeper reason for the name of this book, Sefer Shemot. The names, it's called Sefer Shemot, the book of names, because every man has a name and all our names are in this book as well. We're all here in these pages. I've shown you how the Egyptian exile is the template and the root of all exiles. This becomes a very personal story for each and every one of us being played out right now. And open up your hearts. It's happening right now because what is Galut, exile, really all about? Exile is as if Hashem's face is being hidden from us. And our sages teach that the main cause of all exile, both personal, national, global, if you will, is lack of faith. And the pain that we have in exile, the source of all our suffering, is the illusion that everything that happens is just natural course of events, just nature, just things as they are, random. But when it's revealed to us that everything is Hashem's will and part of His plan, and we understand that all the servitude and exile just serve to remind us that we will be redeemed. For indeed, the main purpose of exile is to prepare for redemption. And that's the beginning of becoming free, that realization. Check out Isaiah 55:12. For with joy you shall go out, and in peace shall you arrive. The mountains and the hills will break out in glad song before you, and all the trees of the field will clap their hands. Now there are many levels and forms of exile. Exile has many meanings. There's all sorts of exile, not just the physical state of bondage. One can be prosperous and physically secure and still be in the darkest depths of exile. One can be connected to the whole world through a dozen different social media platforms, enjoying the latest technology and be in the deepest exile of all if Hashem's face is hidden. And we all go through periods when Hashem's face is hidden from us. But we're the ones that are doing the hiding, not Him. And what does this really mean, this seemingly esoteric teaching that we've all been through this before? It simply means that every person has the strength to go through it now. And why must we experience it? Why must you experience it? In order to prepare for the redemption. Because the real goal of exile, of what each of us is going through, both the whole and the individual, is to find Hashem in it. to find the Hashem in it, to reveal His face, to refine, to fine-tune ourselves into becoming the people we can be. As our holy sages teach, whenever they go out into exile, Babylon, Egypt, now as well, wherever they go into exile, the Shekhinah, the divine presence, goes with them.